Welcome back everybody to the story of Otto the Great. And for this episode we're gonna pick up right at the end of last video with the question that I posed to you. Namely, why couldn't Otto or his men just have killed Heinrich like they did with Thankmar? And the answer for that is that Heinrich was a political bargaining tool of immense importance for Otto, the effects of which will become very much more clear later on in this series. The second reason, though, most importantly, is that Otto and Heinrich were brothers of the same mother, unlike Thankmar, who was the product of a marriage from Heinrich I with Harteburg and not with Mathilde, who is of course the mother of all the other siblings of Otto and Heinrich. So that's the answer. Heinrich would become a very useful political tool in Otto's arsenal later on, although it's not as clearly visible for now, since he's leading one rebellion after the other against Otto, but this will very much change in the future. Alright, now we're gonna move on with the story. And for now, Otto actually manages to catch a breath for once. A few natural phenomena take place around this time which are kind of curious, namely comets, a flood, and a plague. Many people interpret this as a sign of an incoming change in power or leadership, since similar events occurred before King Heinrich's death. Conrad becomes the Duke of Lorraine in 944 and is engaged with Otto's only daughter. This is a big deal because remember, Conrad was involved in some upheaval before. He was actually supporting Otto in the latest rebellion of Heinrich against him, where, remember, Heinrich was trying to have Otto killed, and Conrad was one of the people uncovering that plot. So he is now rewarded, becoming the next Duke of Lorraine and engaged with Otto's daughter, Liutgard, which you can see right here in the family tree. Otto sets his eyes on expansion, defeating King Conrad, not Conrad the Red, who is married with his daughter now, but Conrad of Burgundy, and subduing him. This is a big deal once more, of course, because Burgundy is one of these territories that have been very much disputed between France and Germany up until the last century, if you will. In 947, though, the Duke of Bavaria dies, and Otto's mom calls him up and asks him to be nicer to his little brother Heinrich, so he makes him Duke of Bavaria, since he's already married to the former Duke's daughter. This might seem insane to some of you listening now, because Heinrich has had 3 or so times where he tried to strip Otto of the throne and even kill him, but Otto once more is merciful and he recognizes which immense power lies within Heinrich, his legitimate brother, and he finally makes amends with the guy and makes him the next Duke of Bavaria. This is a big title for Heinrich. Heinrich then afterwards would be forever loyal to Otto actually. And this might be a surprise, but at this point Heinrich probably realized that he benefited more from supporting Otto and fighting on his side than rising up against him constantly. Probably realizing that he was never gonna get that throne, as the relationships in the realm at that point in time were favoring Otto way too much. He actually went on to defeat the Magyars, being the Hungarians, twice, and leads a successful raid and stays loyal to Otto until his death. A period of relative inner and outer peace follows, finally, for Otto, who had been fighting for his life pretty much for the last decade or so. Otto's sister, who was married to Duke Giselbert of Lorraine before, is now married to King Ludwig IV of West Francia. And think about it, that's a big step up in society. She was married to a mere Duke of Otto's own realm, but she's now used as a political bargaining tool internationally and married to the rival king pretty much in the western part of Charlemagne's former empire. Ludwig, the king of France who we are talking about right now, was caught then though and imprisoned by Normans, and his oldest son is killed by them. This prompts Otto to send an army to avenge them, because remember now, this King Ludwig of France is married to Otto's sister. So Otto is forced to honor that bond of marriage and avenge the man. He eventually reinstates them on the French or Western Frankish throne at this point in time. Finally, in 946, Queen Edith dies, and her son Leodolf and the daughter Leodgard are left behind. Otto, now of course this is a big event for him. His first wife has died, and this will be a big shift in momentum in Europe at this point in time. For their two children, we'll deal with Leodolf in the next video. Leodgard and Conrad the Red will start the Salian dynasty, from which Holy Roman Emperors will emerge. So the line of succession eventually passes through Leodgard here, interestingly enough, with Conrad the Red to a new house in the Holy Roman Empire. Otto has by now outfought, outgamed, outlived, and overall outlasted his opponents. Being merciful and using family relations smart has served him well. A period of crazy pace comes to a close finally. For now though, one more fun fact as we're coming to the close of this episode. Otto's younger sister's husband, being his younger sister Hardwig, is Hugo the Elder. Their son is an immensely important figure in Europe's history, namely Hugo Capet, or in English Hugh Capet, first king of the House of Capet in France. From him, and therefore from Otto's sister, directly descend the houses of Burgundy and of Bourbon, and every king of France until Napoleon. So you see this one family here on the throne of Germany, if you will. From them descend a whole bunch of very interesting people, and even at this point, 150 years after Charlemagne was crowned emperor, there's still such a close tie between the part of the empire which would become Germany and the one which would become France later on. The families are still very much intermingled, and as I said, from Henry the Fowler descend the kings of France as well as the Holy Roman Emperors that would follow. Alright, I thought I would leave you with this little bit of trivia at the end. This is the final episode on book 2 of Deeds of the Saxons, which means the next one that I'll bring to you will be the first one covering book 3, which is the final book of this story. Alright, I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed the ride until this point. I will see you next time around, and stay tuned.